for 3 days. The result, virtually a victory for the miners, with rises of between £5 and £6 a week, almost all they'd asked for, with the government told to find the money. Soon after ACAS was set up in 1974, a BL dispute involving a regrading claim by engine tuners at Cowley went to a committee of inquiry. The men claimed they were skilled and should be paid as such. The company said they weren't and they shouldn't be. Professor John Wood chaired the inquiry panel. It recommended a compromise, favouring the union view, with the tuners placed in a separate category, taking into account their skills. In 1980, the steelworkers had been on strike for nearly 3 months before a committee of inquiry was set up. BSC, trying to switch from national to local pay bargaining, had offered a national increase of 2%, plus local bonus schemes, but was met with a straight 19% across-the-board claim from the unions. Lord Lever chaired that inquiry, which left both sides saying they'd got much of what they wanted. For the unions, an extra 11% nationally, 1.5% on top of BSC's so-called final offer, and more to come locally. For the Steel Corporation, the recognition of productivity bargaining at local level. The last major ACAS-sponsored inquiry was into last year's rail dispute. Tangled up in questions of productivity and flexible rostering was the rail union's annual wage claim, a claim which led to the 2-day NUR strike last June. Lord McCarthy chaired that one. It recommended a 6% increase on basic rates, 1% up on BR's offer, an award the unions described as very disappointing, and it was linked to productivity proposals, some of which are still being discussed. And all that suggests a set of ad hoc responses to particular circumstances, with perhaps 2 common features: that the unions always got more from an inquiry, even if it wasn't as much as they wanted, and the strike did end as a result. A lot, of course, depends on the skill of those running such an inquiry. So how do they go about it? I asked a former member of the Wilberforce team if such bodies try to reach a fair settlement, or merely one that will end the strike, when these may be rather different things.
They might be very different things. I think there is almost inevitably an element of both of these in whatever is arrived at. One is looking for something which is fair to both parties. Very often you'll find that in the examination, the investigation of the inquiry, both sides will be criticised on one point or another, and the arbitrator or the inquiry will try to take a very even-handed but fair approach to judgment.
How much are you aware, when you played this role, of the element of sheer face being involved on one side or both? That is, that you have to save face.
There must be an element of that, I think. Not that an arbitration or a court of inquiry is set up in any sense to do this, but I don't think it would do relationships within the industry any good if one side was clearly to lose face. Therefore, I think one comes back to the principle that the inquiry, the arbitrator, will look at the issues as fairly as he can and will come out with an even-handed judgment, but nevertheless one which is trying to see through to the practicalities of a solution, trying to get something which will be acceptable, trying to put a package together which will, at the end of the day, be a workable package.
And how nagging is the thought that over your shoulder, whether admitted or not, there is the government looming, and the government has a view, even, or indeed especially, when it says that it hasn't?
That's a difficult one. One cannot forget it. One is always concerned with matters of the national interest, but of course there are different interpretations and different definitions of the national interest. I think that perhaps one has to draw a distinction here, but again, between the arbitration, where the rule has generally been that, of course, the arbitrator will take into account the national interest as it is defined by government, but will not necessarily be ruled by that. The decision will not be ruled by that.
A final thought. Does the fact that it looks as if the strike may be about to end in 4 to 6 days' time suggest that the ACAS system is working, or does the fact that it might well have been solved a fortnight ago and that little has changed in the last fortnight suggest that the ACAS system is not working?
My view perhaps on that is a little bit prejudiced, but I think the ACAS system is working. It takes time in many such cases to get to the stage at which a thought of either arbitration or an inquiry is acceptable to the parties. Attitudes change over time. It takes a little bit of time for the attitudes of the rank and file membership to be determined. And as the strike or the stoppage goes on, these views will change, opinions will change, and one has to wait until the time is ripe to make the proper suggestions. I think this particular case, having been through conciliation in the first instance, having been through mediation, which was perhaps the best hope, once that had failed, there was likely to be some gap before a new initiative could really hope to be successful, and I think that's what's now happening.
Professor Hunter, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now to the case of Colin Rodge, a 21-year-old whose death a month ago has further fractured relations between police and blacks in the London borough of Hackney. Today, 7 men and 2 women were remanded on bail by London magistrates, charged with threatening behaviour, with obstruction and assaulting police during a demonstration protesting at Colin's death. It was one of a number mounted by supporters of the Roach family who believe Colin did not take his own life. On January the 12th, Colin Rodge's body was discovered by Stoke Newington Police in the foyer of their own police station. He died from gunshot wounds. A shotgun lay nearby. It seemed, on the face of it, a case of suicide, but Colin's family, friends and local Hackney councillors are all pressing for an independent inquiry, and tonight the debate about Colin's death was taken up by the Greater London Council. Paul Barry has been investigating the case of Colin Rodge in the context of a London borough with a long history of tension between the black community and its police. Here's his report.
Violence on the streets of Hackney last weekend. 500 demonstrators, perhaps 1,000 police in the 4th protest in as many weeks. 8 more arrests to bring the total to well over 50 since the death last month of a young black man, Colin Rodge, in Stoke Newington Police Station. And at the centre, the sad figure of a man who's lost his son.
Like that. It's the same night, me and Colin sit down on 1 chair each, and we're watching the flame there. And Colin's leave afterward, and he go out. Colin would not kill himself, so we all must pull together. We all are blacks. We all got to pull together.
At 11:30 p.m. on the night of January the 12th, Colin Rodge walked into the foyer of Stoke Newington Police Station and shot himself. That is the police version of his death, and no one has produced a shred of evidence to suggest otherwise. The police say they did not see him enter and that they were alerted only by a shot. They went to the front lobby to investigate, there to find the body lying in a pool of blood with a bag and a shotgun a few feet away.
The coroner has allowed me to say that Colin Rodge died from the discharge of a gunshot inside the mouth.
It is being alleged by some that the police murdered him. What is your reaction to that?
I think I make no comment about that. The decision as to how Colin Rodge died in tragic circumstances is a matter for the coroner. What I can say is we're not looking for any other person in connection with that death.
You were satisfied that no one else is involved?
I'm satisfied that no other person was involved.
The layout of Stoke Newington Police Station makes it quite plausible that the police did not see Colin Rodge enter. Almost all the lobby is out of sight of the front desk, even if someone was standing right behind it. And the police evidence says the body was found near the left-hand wall. The autopsy report bears all the marks of a classic suicide. There were no signs that the gun had been forced into the mouth. There was no bruising to the body, making a struggle highly improbable. But why should a young man like Colin Rodge take his own life? He was only 21. He loved sport, had plenty of friends. He seemed happy, with everything to live for.
He was a fairly quiet, placid person. I mean, things didn't tend to get on top of him. He seemed to be able to sort of take things as they came.
But in the weeks before his death, Colin Rodge was far from happy. He spent Christmas in Pentonville Prison, serving 3 weeks of a 3-month sentence for petty theft. His friends say the severity of that sentence upset him, and they believe that something happened while he was in prison. They don't know what it was, but it is clear that when he came out, Colin Rodge was not his normal self.
He saw his family doctor because he was feeling depressed and was prescribed like Actil. he was also having difficulty sleeping, and the Largactil does seem to have helped there. He spent a lot of time at home, partly because the Largactil made him feel sleepy and not wanting to go out.